Rachel smiled softly, placing a hand on Eric's arm. I just need some time, babe, to figure things out. Her voice was smooth, rehearsed, the kind that slipped through lips too easily. Eric, always the devoted husband, nodded, though his stomach twisted into knots. I understand, he said, his voice steady despite the growing unease in his chest. He didn't argue, didn't press because he trusted her. And trust had been the foundation of their 17-year marriage. If Rachel needed space, he would give it to her. 2 weeks later, he was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his cold coffee, exhaustion pressing heavy on his shoulders. Work had been hell, his thoughts too scattered to focus. Rachel was still gone, staying at some rental, she said. A little time apart will do us good, she had assured him. His phone buzzed, a notification, $500 spent at a luxury furniture store. Eric frowned. Rachel handled most of the home decor, but why would she be shopping now? His fingers twitched as he tapped into the bank app. A second charge, a third, each one more gutting than the last. $2,000 on a king-size bed, $3,500 at an upscale electronics store. His pulse pounded in his ears. Rachel had barely taken a suitcase when she left. She wasn't just figuring things out, she was building a new life without him. The house felt eerily silent as he sat back in his chair, his mind unraveling every conversation, every forced smile, every unanswered question that suddenly had an answer. Rachel didn't need space. She needed a new home. With someone else. His fingers hovered over her contact, rage and heartbreak warring inside him. He could call, demand answers, scream at her for betraying him, but as his chest heaved with anger, something inside him shifted. Nope, he wasn't going to be the heartbroken fool she expected. He wasn't going to beg for explanations that no longer mattered. Rachel had made her move. Now it was his turn. Eric closed out the banking app, grabbed his laptop, and opened a new tab. It was time to take control. Eric sat motionless at the kitchen table, his fingers pressed together beneath his chin, staring at nothing in particular. His mind raced through every memory, every sign he had ignored. Rachel had always been good at getting what she wanted. She had a way of twisting words, making her choices seem reasonable, even justified. And he, like the devoted, trusting husband he had always been, had believed her. But belief had no place here anymore. The evidence was clear, undeniable, and right in front of him. The woman he had built a life with had already started laying the foundation for her next chapter. Without him, a bitter laugh escaped him, humorless and raw. She had probably convinced herself she was being merciful, easing him into the idea of separation, letting him believe she just needed time to think. But there was no kindness in deception. No mercy in watching someone crumble under the illusion of hope. His phone buzzed again, another notification, another transaction. Eric inhaled deeply and exhaled through his nose, forcing himself to calm the storm brewing inside him. He had two choices. He could confront Rachel, demand answers she would dress in lies, allow himself to spiral into the pain of her betrayal, or he could do what she never expected. He could win. The moment the thought entered his mind, something in him shifted, the weight in his chest loosened, just enough for him to breathe. He wasn't going to be the broken, pathetic husband begging for closure. Rachel had played her game, but she had underestimated him. She thought she could manipulate the narrative, control the outcome, leave him shattered while she moved on without consequence. Not this time. Eric reached for his laptop, his fingers no longer trembling, but steady, deliberate. He started with their finances, pulling up every account, every joint asset. Rachel thought she was being clever, making her quiet little purchases, chipping away at their shared money while keeping him in the dark. What she had forgotten was that Eric handled numbers for a living. He had spent his entire career managing accounts, analyzing transactions, spotting discrepancies. Rachel wasn't just deceitful, she was sloppy. And it didn't take him long to see the pattern. Money funneled into a private account under her name, regular withdrawals, expenses that had nothing to do with her temporary space. A lease agreement, a different address, Travis's address. The revelation didn't shock him as much as it should have. It was almost a relief. A name, a face, a target. He leaned back, stretching his fingers before cracking his knuckles one by one. He wasn't going to lash out in anger. That's what she would expect. That's what Travis, the cocky bastard who thought he had stolen another man's wife, would assume. But Eric wasn't some clueless fool who would lash out and make a mess of things. No, he was going to be smart. Rachel had spent their marriage underestimating him. It was time to show her just how wrong she had been. Eric sat in his office, the glow of the laptop screen illuminating his face in the dim room. His heart no longer ached with grief. It burned with purpose. He wasn't just processing Rachel's betrayal anymore. He was dissecting it, analyzing every detail like a puzzle that needed solving. How long had she been planning this? How deep did the deception go? He clicked through the bank statements again, his mind sharpening with every transaction. The evidence was undeniable. Rachel wasn't just setting up a new life. She had been strategically securing her escape while keeping him in place as her financial safety net. A mattress to land on if things with Travis went south. That realization hit harder than the affair itself. She had never planned to completely let go of him. She had assumed Eric would always be there, waiting, willing to take her back if she ever changed her mind. Eric smirked to himself. Not a chance. If Rachel thought she could keep him tethered while she played house with another man, she was about to learn how mistaken she was. He had spent years being patient, forgiving, overlooking the small lies, the subtle manipulations. Not anymore. Opening another tab, he logged into their mortgage account. His name, her name. He knew exactly where to start. If Rachel wanted space, she was about to get all the space she could handle, far away from his house, his money, and his life. Eric drafted an email to his lawyer, making his first move. Divorce wasn't just a possibility anymore, it was inevitable. But he wouldn't file like a desperate, broken husband begging to be free. No, he would make sure Rachel was the one left with nothing. He composed himself, breathing evenly, controlling the rage that threatened to consume him. Revenge wasn't about anger, it was about strategy. And his first strategic move was cutting Rachel off at the knees. Next, he shifted his attention to their joint credit cards. He pulled up the statements, skimming through Rachel's recent spending habits. She had been careless. A trip to an expensive spa, designer clothes, a lavish dinner, all charged to their shared accounts. Eric's jaw clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. This wasn't about the money. This was about power. With a few clicks, he transferred every available dollar out of their joint accounts and into his personal one. Rachel would wake up tomorrow to find her card declined at whatever boutique she planned to shop at next. She would be confused at first, then frustrated, then desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Eric sat back, stretching his arms over his head, satisfaction creeping into his chest for the first time in weeks. Rachel had been playing her game in the shadows, believing she was in control, but now the game belonged to him. The morning air was crisp, but Eric felt nothing as he stepped outside to retrieve the newspaper. His mind was already elsewhere, anticipating the chaos Rachel would soon wake up to. He could almost picture it. The confusion on her face when her card got declined, the mounting panic when she tried to check their joint account and saw a zero balance. She would try to call him. Maybe once, maybe 10 times, but he wouldn't answer. Rachel didn't deserve his words anymore. Instead, he poured himself a fresh cup of coffee, letting the rich aroma fill the kitchen as he sat down at the table. His phone sat in front of him, silent for now, but he knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. And right on cue, it buzzed. Rachel, a smirk tugged at his lips. Let her sweat. He took a slow sip of his coffee and let the call go to voicemail. A few seconds later, another call. This time, a text followed. Rachel, Eric, something's wrong with our accounts. I can't access anything. Call me back now. He leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers against the wooden table. He had spent years jumping at her every request, fixing every problem she brought to him. But Rachel wasn't his problem anymore. Another message popped up. Rachel, Eric, this isn't funny. I need money to pay for things. What the hell is going on? Eric chuckled, enjoying the irony. She had drained their accounts for weeks to fund her new life with Travis, and now she was the one demanding answers. He let a few minutes pass before opening his banking app and making one final adjustment, freezing their joint credit cards. Rachel wanted independence. She was about to learn what it truly meant to stand on her own. Less than a minute later, another call came in. This time, Rachel didn't even wait for voicemail before firing off another text. Rachel, I know you did something. Call me. Still, Eric ignored her. Instead, he checked his calendar, reminding himself of his next move. His lawyer had scheduled a meeting for later that afternoon to finalize the divorce paperwork. By tomorrow, Rachel would receive the official notice. But Eric wasn't done yet. He grabbed his laptop and navigated to Rachel's social media accounts, ones she had foolishly left logged in on their shared computer. He wasn't interested in spying, he just wanted proof. A few clicks led him to her hidden messages, the ones she never thought he'd see. And there it was. Rachel, all right, babe. Eric won't suspect anything. He's too soft to do anything about it. Once the divorce goes through, I'll make sure I still get a piece of what's left. Eric's smirk disappeared. So that had been the plan all along. Rachel had never intended to leave him cleanly. She wanted to milk him for everything she could before fully committing to Travis. His grip on his coffee mug tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. This wasn't anger. It was motivation. She thought he wouldn't fight back. She thought he would just roll over and let her win. Eric clicked over to his legal documents and made a quick adjustment to his divorce petition. He wasn't just filing for divorce. He was making sure Rachel left with nothing. Spousal support? Gone. Access to his retirement savings? Not a chance. The house. She'd be lucky if she got the driveway. He would make sure Rachel walked away exactly as she had come into this marriage, alone and empty-handed. A final buzz shook his phone. This time, Rachel's message was short, desperate. Rachel, Eric, please, just talk to me. He exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. No, Rachel, the time for talking is over.